afternoon, everyone. Welcome to BooksWagon. Today with me, I have Eric Chopra with his latest book, Coastal Delhi's Haunted Monuments. It's a narrative non-fiction journey through the city's most intriguing ruins, from the Jamali Kamali and the Firoz Shah Kotla to Kuni Darwaza and Mansha Mahal. All of that. And let me tell you, sir is the greatest storyteller. So let's go on air with BooksWagon, sir. We are really glad to have you here today.
Absolutely lovely to be here.
Thank you so much. So, I want to ask you what drew you to actually write on Delhi's haunted places? What was your inspiration behind that?
I think we all grow up with ghost stories,
Yeah.
stories of witches and jinn and spirits with twisted feet. And I'm a historian, so when I began heritage walks in Delhi, a lot of people would take me to monuments and say, यहाँ कोई भूत है. And because I have long hair and I wear a lot of perfume, whenever I would go to a certain monument, they would say, आप अपने बाल बांधिए, and you take off your perfume. Because if you don't, then the jinn, these creatures made of smokeless fire, will come and sit in your hair. So I got very interested in what is it about monuments that is so scary? Why do people think that a monument is supposed to be a place of horrors? And that was my first investigation. So when I started going to these monuments from Jamali Kamali to Firoz Shah Kotla to Khuni Darwaza, the name is Khuni Darwaza, it has to have a gory story, to Mutiny Memorial, I realized that all of these horrors are rooted in history. There's a historical reason why ghosts exist. So my book is a journey through both the ghosts of Delhi, but historically why these ghosts exist.
Okay. So, sir, before I proceed, I really want you to answer the audience favorite question. Have you experienced anything paranormal in your life?
You know, I've been asked this before. I think my love for horror goes back to my childhood. It predates my love for history. I remember growing up, I watched a lot of Fear Files and Goosebumps. And I remember watching Thriller by Michael Jackson when that music video came out. And I was absolutely amused and mystified by, him turning into a werecat. And I've loved horror ever since. But then I came to Delhi, and history and horror married each other. And I started to go to these monuments, and people would tell me that you may find a ghost, you may find a spirit. I never went with that idea though. However, if you ask me if ghosts exist, I have the same answer I would give when people ask me if you believe in a certain religion. I don't think I know enough. None of us know enough about God or ghosts to say yes or no to either. I would always say, I don't know. However, there have been instances where I have gone to Jamali Kamali, this gem box of a monument that's always kept locked, and I've come back from heritage walks in the afternoon and I've had very surreal lucid dreams. Like I've woken up with dreams that were not scary, but they were lucid. It's a state where you don't know you're dreaming. So you wake up, you go about your room, but you notice something is odd. If you look at the clock, the timing would be odd. And then you know that you're in a dream. So I've had those experiences with dreams, but when it comes to the paranormal and the supernatural, I think you'll have to read my book to find out.
So, like, your book has a lot of things going on. It has folklore, it has history, it has experiences, and your archival research as well. So, how do you balance scholarly rigor with storytelling and myth without dismissing either of them?
I think when people talk about history, they don't talk about it through people. हम लोग हिस्ट्री पढ़ते नहीं है because we think we can't relate with it. It's dates, names, and places, and these things happened so long ago. How does it matter? When I was in school, there is this character from history called Ibn Battuta. People know Ibn Battuta through that song from Ishqiya, Ibn Battuta, Bagal Mein Joota, which was anyway based on a poem. But Ibn Battuta was a Moroccan traveler who came to Delhi. He stayed at the court of Muhammad bin Tughlaq and he left a diary behind for us. I read that diary. And that diary is written like how a person would write a diary. We forget that people in history were also people. So Ibn Battuta goes to the top of Qutub Minar and looks down and says, everybody looks so tiny. And you can feel his emotional connection with the city, with the people through his diary. So my connection with history has always been through emotions, through people who lived in the past, not as characters who were kings and queens and empresses and sultans, but as people who were living, breathing entities. So I, even as a historian, don't make a difference between a source and a story. I think emotions matter as much as a primary record. And so my book is at the intersection. अगर आप इंडिया में किसी से पूछो what does this monument mean to you, they will always have a personal story. Why does that story not matter for us as present day historians? That's also history in the making. So, all of it, when you live in a city like Delhi, people are always going to have stories and oral histories, archival sources, primary sources, maps, poems, paintings. All of it is very important to me, especially when I'm talking about ghost stories, because even if you don't believe in a ghost and you start talking to somebody, they will say, I don't believe in ghosts, but there was this one time, and you just know they have a story to tell.
So, for someone who isn't interested in supernatural things, what deeper insights about history or city culture do you hope they take away from Mosdale?
So, as I said, my book is not for somebody who wants a documentation of my paranormal experiences in life, but nor is it for somebody who's looking for a pure academic exercise. My book is for the people I write for and I write about. I am a Delhi wala and I think Delhi sabki hai. And I feel like whenever I've taken people on heritage walks, whenever I've taken people to museums with me, it is all the stories that they have told me that has resulted in this book. It is taking a walk with me through the various historical monuments of Delhi. If you pick this book, you will get to know about the entire history of Delhi from Mehrauli, with Aravali's setting the stage for political social changes all the way to why we call New Delhi New Delhi. Matlab, there is New Delhi, there is Purani Delhi, there is Old Delhi. What are these Delhis and why is this a city of cities? So my book is a history of the entirety of Delhi, but through the perspective of the various ghost stories that people have shared with me and that I've heard about during my experiences and my research. So, if anybody who's interested in just being curious, just loving stories, and knowing your city from an emotional perspective, I think this is a book for them.
So I noticed your wrote dedicated to your Dadu, you know. So and I see very deep emotional connection with Delhi of yours and all the monumental visits that you've had. So were you always this much interested in ghost stories and writing about supernatural stuff and roaming around Delhi, or how did you come into writing?
That's a very interesting question. I always tell people I do not know why I'm doing what I'm doing, and that's true. I don't want a documentary made on me, so I say this dramatically. I say it because I mean it. I fell in love with history in one night. It was literally during my board exams. I was never studying, I never grew up as a studious child. After my grandfather passed away, to whom I dedicate this book, there are two things in life that you think you're not taught to grapple with. When you fall in love, you do not know what to do with it. Honestly, I mean, I do not know what to do with it. You fall head over heels in love, you do not know what to do. Similarly, when you go through grief, you sometimes do not know what to do. Who teaches you how to get over somebody's passing? My dadu was a Delhi wala in and out. It's because of him that I grew up in Knot Place. At some point used to be the place to go to. Wenger's and Deepal's coffee and Indian coffee house used to be places we used to frequent. I've grown up with that. I've grown up with Christmas in Delhi, which used to be very different at that time. Malls used to be decorated with these huge Santa Clauses. And as a child, you're very mystified. But I'm not a child who's grown up in Delhi. I'm a Delhi wala, but I've moved all around because of my father's occupation. But after my dadu passed to the other side, I realized all my grief turned into my creativity. Sometimes grief is not about crying enough or not knowing what to do with it. It's about using that energy. And I think in many ways, my grief turned into all my writing for Delhi. So when I write about Delhi, I write about it from an emotional perspective because I think people complain about Delhi so much, but we forget we have done this to the city. The climate is not because of the city. You talk about the AQI levels, you talk about the jam, you talk about the water clogging, you talk about intense summer, you talk about merciless winter. It's not Delhi that has done it. We also haunt the city in a way. And so I think that's why I write about Delhi so emotionally and so personally, because I feel that this is a city we have deeply wounded and there is a way in which we need to come together. And if the ghosts and jinn and witches are indeed in the monuments of Delhi, they're waiting and watching what we'll do with this inheritance.
Indeed, they must be waiting and watching. So, my last thing, if you had to describe Delhi in a sentence, what would you say?
If I had to describe Delhi in a sentence, I would use Galib. एक रोज अपनी रूह से पूछा कि दिल्ली क्या है, तो जवाब में कह गई ये दुनिया मानो जिस्म और दिल्ली उसकी जान. One evening I asked my soul, what is Delhi? My soul responded, the world is the body, Delhi is its spirit.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Now I realize why they call you the great storyteller. Thank you so much
Thank you.
for this session.
Thank you.
And thank you everyone for being with us here today. Thank you.
Hello, I am Eric Chopra, author of Ghosted Delhi's Haunted Monuments. And if you are a seeker of stories, if you're a Delhi wala or not, or if you're simply a curious cat, this book is for you and it's available on BooksWagon.